Alright, looks like we should be good to go. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Welcome to your Enhancement Talent Review for AEW Dynamite. October 16th, 2019. A main event which featured Chris Jericho defending the AEW World Championship against Darby Allin. We had Riho defending her AEW Women's Championship against Britt Baker. Pac and Jon Moxley versus Hangman, Adam Page, and Kenny Omega. The remainder of the first round in the tag team tournament with SCU versus the Best Friends and the Lucha Brothers versus Lucha, or what are they called? Jurassic Express, rather. Lucha Bros versus Jurassic Express. And we'll get into all of that here in the review. Starting from the top, we had SCU entering, and right out of the gate, they are attacked by the Lucha Brothers, which was confusing at first, because why would the Lucha Brothers attack them when they're not even facing them tonight? Now, I have a theory on that, which we'll get to later. But they take out Daniels with a pile driver on the ramp. Scorpio Sky comes out and chases the Lucha Bros away before they can do anything more to Kazarian. And Daniels gets stretchered out. I like that, for one, that Sky wasn't in ring gear. That was a nice little touch because he was expecting not to compete. They even set this up with the promo, I think it was last week, that Sky said that he was going to let the experience advantage of Daniels and Kazarian take the tournament. But now Sky forced into things unexpectedly. And we have the team of Scorpio Sky and Kazarian versus the Best Friends. And, you know, this was a fun match. SCU are going to win this. Their finisher was kind of botched. With the power bomb. I think it's supposed to go into like a backcracker sort of thing, but it basically ended up being a drop kick from Scorpio Sky. I do like that SCU win here, and we don't have to see another Best Friends versus Dark Order match. That's a bonus. So the next match will be SCU versus Dark Order, and the winner of that match will advance to the finals. And, you know, I like the story of Scorpio Sky coming in and picking up the win for his team. Also pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, not much else to say on that. It was a fun match. Glad SCU won. And hopefully they can get something out of Dark Order that we haven't seen brought out of them yet. Hopefully they can bring something new to the table, and maybe we can get Dark Order more involved and more over than they have been thus far. After this week, and this show was all tag team matches except the 2 title matches, if I'm not mistaken. And so we would continue that here with Santana and Ortiz, the former LAX, versus John Silver and Alex Reynolds, I believe were their names. I don't know if these guys were enhancement guys or if these are guys that are actually on AEW's roster that I just don't remember or haven't heard of, but this was a squash match for Santana and Ortiz. They pick up the win pretty easily. They point up to the Titantron where Chris Jericho is. He comes on to put over how great the team of Santana and Ortiz is. And then Jericho challenges on behalf of Santana and Ortiz, what he calls the best tag team in AEW before Santana and Ortiz signed. And that being the Young Bucks. They challenged them to a match at Full Gear. So that could be one of the reasons that the Young Bucks were bounced out of the tournament so early. I think that it's more so because they want to do more with Private Party, but this definitely could be a reason for that too. I'm hopeful that Private Party are going to win this tournament, personally. They're on the top of my list as far as tag teams go here, so hopefully that wasn't the only reason that they won the last week's match against the Young Bucks. But Young Bucks versus Santana and Ortiz, that was kind of set up last week with the big brawl at the end of the show. You kind of had Santana and Ortiz and the Young Bucks fighting it out, as well as Dustin Rhodes, Cody Rhodes, Jake Hager, and everyone there. So this made sense that would lead to a match. After that, we got a cool little video package for Cody hyping up the match with Jericho. And I like these video packages, but this is like the second one they've done for a Cody match. Before it was the Sammy Guevara match on the opening. I just hope that they're going to do things for more guys, because I think like you can't do too many things like this because it'll water down the show. You need to have your matches in there, but I would like maybe one of these a week, and it could be like a superstar spotlight sort of thing where you get to highlight someone different each week. So I hope they do more of this, but with other guys and other storylines, and not just whatever Cody is doing. But this was really good. It had commentary from Diamond Dallas Page, MJF, Jim Ross. You know, it was all good. Highlighted the advantages that Jericho could have because of how Cody's focus is on other things, with being an executive vice president for AEW. And yeah, other than that, just showed like Cody training and whatnot. It was a cool little short package. After this, we get the Women's Championship match. We have Riho defending the title against Dr. Britt Baker, DMD. You got to make sure you put Doctor in there. At the beginning, the crowd was more into Riho than I would have thought them to be. But it seems that she does at least have some crowd support. But this match didn't click for me. It didn't work for me. I thought a lot of the offense looked ineffective and sloppy. Or maybe sloppy is not the right word for it. It just didn't look impactful, specifically from Rio's side. And I don't think that's just because of her size. I think it's just in the convincing manner that you have to be able to do these things at to make them look good. And especially when you are someone her size, then we're going to be looking more intently on that. And I think that it just hasn't worked with her, for me personally. But Riho is going to win this with a roll-up out of Britt Baker's submission. Lockjaw, I think is what it's called. But basically like a Rings of Saturn into a mandible claw. Didn't think this was a great match. Like I said, most of the offense didn't really translate to me very well. But it wasn't terrible. It wasn't shameful. It just wasn't great. And Britt Baker also being put into this position and then having to lose isn't great. I think Britt should really be one of the staples for AEW's women's division, and I've stated over and over again, I think they've done a terrible job with their women's division. Right away, they really killed off Nyla Rose with the match with Riho and things leading up to that. So, for me, it just seems like there's not enough established or credible threats in their women's division. After this, we get Jurassic Express versus the Lucha Bros, and there's no Luchasaurus in this match due to an injury, and that is unfortunate, as he is one of my favorite guys on the roster so far, and I really like the team of he and Jungle Boy. But Jungle Boy and Marco Stunt, this wasn't bad. I don't want to act like it was. And they did good things with Marco Stunt because they made him fight from underneath and they had him get his moments in. But for most of this match, it felt like he was getting beaten up. And Jungle Boy, he would get his offense in, but you look at him compared to Marco Stunt, it actually makes him look like he's actually an average-sized person. But, yeah, Lucha Bros are going to win this, pinning Marco Stunt, which is what they should do. I mean, you have the out of having Marco Stunt on the team. He can take the pin. There's no problem with that. Nonetheless, though, this match would have been a lot better for me if Luchasaurus was there. If I'm not mistaken, though, that one thing I did note from this match is that the last tag that the Lucha Bros made, the one that tagged in was standing in the ring, standing in the turnbuckle instead of on the apron. Like, what? That shouldn't be allowed. I'll have to rewatch it to make sure my eyes did not deceive me there, but that is what it looks like. And with the Lucha Bros winning here, it feels like they are setting up for SCU versus the Lucha Bros in the finals with what they did earlier in the night with the Lucha Bros assaulting SCU. Kind of feels like that could be the direction they're going in. I'm not sure. I still want to hope that Private Party will be in the finals. But I could definitely see SCU versus Lucha Bros with how they set things up earlier. We have Jon Moxley and Pac versus Hangman, Adam Page, and Kenny Omega. This match breaks down when Moxley and Omega both get barbed wire weapons. Moxley having the barbed wire bat, Kenny Omega having the barbed wire broom. As they both enter the ring, Moxley scares the ref out of the ring. And the ref, he takes a hike, he just gets out of the ring, he stays on the outside. And that's when Moxley hits Omega with a bat, with that bat, the barbed wire bat. I believe he might have hit him with it twice. No disqualification was called, but in comes Pac, who rids the ring of all the weapons, gets rid of the broom, takes the bat away from Moxley, yelling at Moxley to use your head. Mox gives Pac the double middle fingers before laying him out with the paradigm shift DDT. Leaving Pac 2 versus 1, double team commences, and Hangman pins Pac with a Deadeye. I liked the finish. I thought it was good for Moxley's character to, after Pac sort of talked down to him and got rid of the weapons and whatnot, that Moxley would just say, alright, well, screw you then, I'm out of here. But the only thing I, again, don't like is that we're hitting guys with bats, barbed wire bats, and it's not a disqualification. Like, they could have done this differently, like somehow had Pac come in before the two of them, one of them hit each other with the weapon. They could have had Pac get rid of the weapons before that and did the same thing. But, I don't know, and I'm going to get to it later in the main event, but it just seems like AEW has this tendency to just make up their own rules as they go, and whatever fits for the situation that they're going to do, they're not going to regard the rules of a match when it goes to that. They're just going to do what they want to do and screw us for thinking that it should be done otherwise. And that is when we get the main event. We have Face Paint Chris Jericho, as I call him here, versus Darby Allin in a Philadelphia street fight. Now, the rules of a street fight, traditionally, are that there are no disqualifications, no countouts, and pinfall occurs inside the ring or submission. So, why the hell were there rope breaks in this match? What? Alright, so the finish, we had someone interfering and punching another guy in the face. And that wouldn't be a disqualification. But we are going to have rope breaks on submissions because reasons. So when Jericho puts Darby Allin in this Walls of Jericho, and Aubrey Edwards, who is a fantastic referee, tells Jericho, starts counting Jericho. If Jericho did not let go, would it have been a disqualification in a street fight? Because that's no worse than what WWE just did with the Hell in a Cell finish. Let's just be honest, if that was the direction that they would have gone. So, I don't get why AEW insists that they can just make up their own rules. And they did this twice with the submission. And they did have a rope break during a pin, but I've talked about this before, that's different from having a rope break on a submission, because the rules of a street fight still are that pinfall has to occur inside the ring. So technically, if you grab the ropes or any of your body is outside of the ropes, you're out of bounds. So the pinfall wouldn't be inside the ring. So that still makes sense. After the second submission, I started noticing that the crowd even start chanting, "It's a street fight." After Darby gets the ropes on the second Walls of Jericho, Jericho goes outside the ring and he grabs duct tape to tie Darby Allin's hands behind his back. So you can't have a submission in the ropes, but you can tie someone's arms behind their back. That seems like it makes sense, but anyway. After that, the sequence after this where Darby's hands were tied behind his back, but he kept managing to get offense in, was awesome. I loved that. There were a ton of great near falls, with Darby having a great moonsault with his hands tied behind his back, followed by a dive to the outside. Darby got another great near fall with like a corkscrew moonsault sort of thing. But Jericho gets another near fall of his own with a powerbomb onto Darby Allin's skateboard, which didn't look great, I'll be honest. But Jericho is going to get a chair. Darby counters out by hitting a drop kick to the chair, and he's going to go up top for the coffin drop. With Jericho laid out, there's no hope until in comes Jake Hager with a punch to the face of Darby Allin, which leads to Jericho getting Darby in the walls, and assumingly Darby verbally submits to Aubrey Edwards because Aubrey calls for the bell, because his hands are tied behind his back so he can't tap out. After that, the rest of the Inner Circle come out to celebrate with a little bit of the bubbly to close the show. So I hated this finish. And I hated the inconsistencies of this match with the rope breaks and whatnot. Other than that, like the action in this match was really fun. I thought Jericho gave Darby Allin a ton. I thought Darby, especially with the hands tied behind his back offense, that was really cool. And it would have been perfect without A, the rope breaks on submissions, and without B, Jake Hager coming in and interfering. Because you already have an out. You already have an out that makes Darby Allin still look strong in defeat to Chris Jericho. The man's hands were tied behind his back. What more out do you need that you need to pile on top of that with also having Jake Hager interfere? Like, it's just going to make Jericho look like a weak champion to me. Because, it's okay to have Hager interfere sparingly to help Jericho when it really matters. But in this case, if Jericho couldn't beat Darby Allin with his hands tied behind his back, then I don't know what that says about Jericho. So the fact that Hager needed to interfere to help Jericho win against a man with his arms tied behind his back, it just doesn't sit well with me, personally. But yeah, that was the show. Other than that, I really enjoyed the match. Darby Allin comes out of this looking like a much bigger star than he did prior. And that's the great thing about him working with Jericho here. I think that's a really good booking decision to give Darby Allin this big championship match, have him go toe-to-toe with Jericho, but ultimately lose. I just didn't love the execution of it. Didn't love the rope breaks and the Hager interference. But yeah, those are only kind of minor details to it. But other than that, I thought this show was solid. Most of the matches delivered. The tag matches were good. Riho and Britt Baker I didn't love, but other than that, and the finish of this match and the rope breaks and all that, I thought this was a really solid show. And AEW keep their momentum rolling. They'll have to watch NXT in just a minute here, and we'll have that review up on the channel here in the morning-ish. And yeah, that'll be it for me. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.